Good evening. We're so glad you joined us this evening. My name is Cindy Saint, and I'll be the moderator for the forum this evening. The forum is sponsored by Arizona State University and the Citizens Clean Elections Commission. By way of information, ASU is a nonpartisan organization. That is, they never support or oppose any candidate or political party. For this reason, the Clean Elections Commission has chosen ASU to conduct its candidates forums in Legislative District 27. The Clean Elections Act is a campaign finance reform measure which was passed by Arizona voters back in 1998. Participation as a clean elections candidate is strictly voluntary. The system provides full public funding for qualified candidates who illustrate the support of constituents by gathering $5 of qualifying contributions from registered voters in their legislative district. They must also adhere to contribution and spending limits, and they may not accept monies from any special interest groups, and they agree to participate in these types of forums. The candidates this evening running for Senate are Mr. Aaron Marquez, Ms. Catherine Miranda, and the candidates this evening running for House of Representatives are Mr. Reginald Boulding, Democrat, Ms. Norma Munez, Democrat and Clean Elections candidate, Mr. Marcelino Quinones, Democrat, and Ms. Rebecca Rios, Democrat. The order in which the candidates will speak is determined alphabetically by last name and will progress from that starting point. The closing statements will be in the reverse order. Mr. Marquez, would you like to start?
Thank you. I want to thank ASU and the Clean Elections Commission for hosting us tonight. My name is Aaron Marquez, Democrat running for state senator in District 27. I want to tell you a story about my time in Afghanistan. I came home from Afghanistan about a year and a half ago, and this explains why I'm running for office today here in Arizona. In Afghanistan, my job was to build bridges. My job was to build schools and women's centers. My job was to convince the Afghans to believe in some basic principles of governance before we end the war. On one of my very first patrols, I went to the village of Salar-Tepa. And in this village of Salar-Tepa, I went door to door, very much like today. We all go door to door talking to voters, asking the villagers of Salar-Tepa about their most important concerns in their communities. And very much like I ask now about the concerns of voters in District 27. And door after door, village elder after village elder would tell me that they didn't want anything from the government. They didn't want anything from the Afghan or the Americans because for the last 10 years they had heard from the other Americans that had come before them that they were going to get a bridge. And at that bridge, the bridge was going to send their kids to the school on the other side of the river. And they were going to get access to the police so the police could come and patrol their village. But the bridge never was built. But by the time we left Afghanistan, we got that bridge under contract. And today, the people of Salar-Tepa have a bridge. In Arizona, at the state Senate, we need bridge builders. We need bridge builders to bring resources to our community in South Phoenix. We need bridge builders to bring resources to Levine and Guadalupe. And we need bridge builders to work across the aisle. I know this is a Democratic primary, but the Republicans are very, very much still in control of the state Senate. And we need to find ways to work across the aisle with the Republicans in the state Senate as well. And I plan to do that in my first 2 years in office by focusing on veterans issues, making sure that every Arizona veteran, as they come home from war, has an opportunity to go to school, find a job, and always access the health care benefits they've already earned. The biggest bridge that I think we need to build, though, in Arizona is a long-term bridge. And the courts in Arizona have already decided that bridge, we need to put money back into our schools, a bridge to the types of jobs we need to bring to Arizona to compete in the 21st century global economy. Every day I go door to door and I talk to parents that are frustrated with the status of education in Arizona. We need to restore funding to pre-recession levels, and the courts are going to make us do that. But we need Democrats that are willing to fight for those resources and put those resources in the right place. We need to pay teachers a competitive salary. We need to reduce class size, and we need to put technology in the classroom. Putting more dollars in the classroom is part of how we send more kids to college and bring better jobs to Arizona. And I'm going to fight every day my hardest in the state Senate to make sure that Arizona kids always have a world-class education. Thank you. My name is Aaron Marquez, aaronmarquez.com.
Thank you. I'm going to back up just a little bit, and I apologize for this. I missed a page in my script, so if you all bear with me for just a moment. This election cycle, the Citizens Clean Elections Commission has also invited traditional campaigning candidates to participate. We are requesting questions from the audience. If you hold up your cards, one of our volunteers will pick it up and deliver it to me. We screen the questions for clarity to eliminate duplications or speeches or personal attacks on the candidates. If you need another card, just hold up your hand and the volunteers will get it from you. There's also an independent timer, Kenja here, who will see that all the candidates have equal time for answers to the questions and will tell them when their time is up. We expect all audience members to give the candidates a fair and uninterrupted hearing, no matter how strongly you may agree or disagree with what's being said. This means no applause, no outbursts or cheers. Also, before we get started, we ask that everyone please turn off or silence your mobile phones and other electronic devices that you may have. Our format this evening will be 3 minutes for the opening statements, 2 minutes to answer any of the questions, and 3 minutes each for the closing statements. And again, I apologize for jumping around there. Mr. Boulding, would you like to continue with the open statements?
Absolutely, thank you. My name is Reginald Boulding, and I'm running for the Arizona State House of Representatives. My story is very similar to many people in my district. Growing up, I was raised by a single parent, and she fought every day, day in and day out, to make sure that her children had opportunities and options. And for her, she wanted her kids to use education as a platform to provide those opportunities and options. And I was grateful enough and blessed to have a strong mother and teachers in our community who really, took an interest in me to provide me those opportunities and options. Right now here in Arizona, a lot of our kids don't have those choices. And I think about my time in the classroom, and I think about my student like Alfredo, who was a 6th grade student who was reading at a kindergarten level. Or I think about my student Daquan, who was placed in special education because we didn't have enough resources at our school in order to make sure that he got the support that he needed. Or I think about Charletta, whose dad was laid off from work, and he had a hard time providing to put food on the table. Those 3 stories about 3 of the kids that were in my classroom exemplify why I'm running today. I was offered a full ride law school scholarship several years ago, and I decided to turn that down to become a teacher in our community. For me, I fundamentally believe that all kids, no matter what community they grew up in, deserves an excellent opportunity for strong public education. And as a state legislator, I'll consistently, day in and day out, fight to make sure that happens. One thing that we're seeing in the state legislature right now is misplaced priorities. When we have laws that are penalizing kids that are 6 and 9 years old if they don't read at 3rd grade reading level, but we're also not providing them with funding for full-day kindergarten or early childhood access. We need individuals who have spent time in the classroom, not only as educators in K-12, but also in the university system. I feel like I am the strongest candidate to be in this race because the diversity of my experience and the coalitions that we've been able to build will continue to make sure that we continue to move on from here until now. With that, I'm looking forward to this debate and answering some great questions about what things that we can do to move this community forward. Thank you.
Thank you, and good evening to everyone. First of all, I want to thank the Clean Elections Commission and the ASU for hosting this debate. I'm very privileged to be here, and I am the only clean candidate running for the state legislature. I am Norma Munoz. I'm the state representative currently at the state legislature for District 27. I am a lifelong resident of LD27. Very proud. First of all, I want to start out by reading you some figures that mean a lot to me. First of all, there's 59,816 children residing in LD27. 1 out of every 3 children live in poverty. 1 out of every 4 children live in families who live in poverty. Almost half of the children living in households in poverty receive also assistance. And nearly 2/3 of these children are living in families where both parents work full-time jobs but make minimum wages and are in poverty. That is why I'm running for a state representative. That's why I want to make a difference, because something is wrong here. We need jobs for our community. We need to improve the economy. We need to improve our schools. It is shameful when Arizona State Legislature gives $990,000 to private prisons but cuts funding for education. That's shameful, and I'm ashamed of that, and it makes me angry because I am a public school advocate. I believe that all children deserve the same opportunities and the same chances to succeed. I believe we should raise the minimum wage in a reasonable way. I know that if we start paying better wages, we will make people happier, they will spend more money and add to the economy. I think that I want to invest in energy. I want the state of Arizona to invest in energy because I believe energy is the future for Arizona. I think we have enough heat, you all felt it today, that we can do that very successfully. And I also believe that funding private prisons for profit is wrong. And I will fight against private prisons because that keeps the pipeline from education to the prisons from our schools, getting filled beds. And I think that's wrong, and I will fight against that. I believe that LD27 has an entrepreneurial spirit, and I will work with the state of Arizona to better make the process for small businesses to get their licenses and permits in a more effective and efficient way. And I will fight for the people of LD27. Thank you. My name is Norma Munoz, and I hope I have your support.
Mr. Quinones.
Thank you, Cindy. Thank you, Arizona State University and the Clean Elections Committee for hosting us tonight. My name is Marcelino Quinones. I am a candidate for the Legislative District 27, a district that has seen me graduate from elementary school and high school. District 27 is also the place that I returned after becoming the first person in my entire family from graduating the university and becoming a high school English teacher, where I was able to empower 78% of my students to pass the Arizona Ames reading and writing exam. District 27 is also the place that over the last 20 months has seen me serve on the Roosevelt School District Governing Board, where I've been instrumental in bringing free after-school programs, free summer school programs, free arts programs. And over the last 4 months, I'm happy to announce that our board, for the first time in 6 years, was able to give our teachers a 5% pay increase. This same board approved free arts classes, free music classes for all of our students. District 27 is the place that I've called home, and it's the place that I want to continue to serve. I've served it as a student, I've served it as an educator, and lastly, I've served it through the governing board. We have an opportunity now to tell a different story about Arizona. We have an opportunity to tell a story where Arizona restores public funding, and especially public funding towards education. We have an opportunity to tell a story with our campaign where racist bills like SB 1070 are no longer what we talk about. We have an opportunity with my campaign to erase bigotry bills like SB 1062. I plan to go in there, work with my colleagues so that we can come to a common ground about how we can make all of Arizona better. I look forward to your support. My name is Marcelino Quinones.
Thank you. Ms. Rios.
Good evening. Thank you all for coming out tonight. It's an honor to be able to speak directly to you. I'm Rebecca Rios, and I'm running for one of the 2 House seats in LD27. I want to tell you a little bit about myself. I'm a 4th-generation native Arizonan. I'm married, I have 3 children, and I reside in South Phoenix. I'm a proud ASU graduate. I have both a bachelor's and a master's degree from Arizona State University. I've worked the past 25 years in the children's behavioral health arena here in Arizona and have an extensive background in nonprofits. I'm currently the president of the Florence Copper Community Foundation. Why am I running for the legislature? I'm running for the legislature because, as I told you, I'm a native Arizonan. I'm fortunate to still have my parents and grandparents, my family, siblings and their family. All of us live in Arizona. I anticipate that we'll always live in Arizona. And as I've gotten older, I think I've been very concerned about the direction that Arizona has gone, particularly in the last 2 decades under the guidance of the elected officials and the policies that they've implemented. I don't agree with that, and I'd like to see Arizona head down a different path. I guess the Arizona that I would like to see is one that prioritizes and protects children. I want to see Arizona create a first-class public education system, not one that continually ranks 50th in the nation. I want a vibrant economy in which everyone has an opportunity to succeed. Arizona needs to protect our environment, and I think there's a big issue that has not been adequately addressed, and that's looking at water, ensuring that we have adequate water supplies, not only for the residents that are here today, but those that will be joining us in the future. And I think lastly, and most importantly, I want the Arizona that I live in to celebrate, to be respectful of our diversity, and not continue to discriminate against various populations here in Arizona. I've served in the legislature. I've had the good fortune of serving 3 terms in the Arizona House of Representatives and 3 terms in the Arizona State Senate. When I was in the Senate, I was elected to be whip and assistant minority leader. I want to get back to work for our district. I offer you a legislator, a potential legislator that can hit the ground running. I know the process, and I'm not afraid to stand up and make the arguments and be a very vocal and ardent supporter for our district and the state of Arizona. Thank you, and I look forward to speaking to you more tonight and letting you know where I stand on the issues.
Thank you to all the candidates for your great opening statements. We'll now start with the questions. Mr. Marquez, the first question from our audience is, what steps would you take to ensure a woman's right to choose?
Well, thank you for that question. I want to first point out that I'm the only candidate in the race for Senate in District 27 that is endorsed by Planned Parenthood, have their full support, and I will always stand up to the attacks by Arizona Republicans to limit a woman's right to choose her own healthcare decisions and a woman's right to choose the decisions that are best for her family.
So this is an issue that is not only personal to me, but something that I consistently advocate for. I am currently on the board of Planned Parenthood and also endorsed by Planned Parenthood. When you talk about opportunities, when you talk about making sure that individuals in our community have access to quality health care, those are decisions that we want to keep in the household. When the state legislature, when government starts to interfere in individuals' daily lives, that's when we have a problem here. And on the front lines, fighting with women in the work that I do, I'll consistently stand up to extremist attacks, fighting against women's right to choose and families' health issues. And as the candidate who is on the Planned Parenthood board and endorsed, I look forward to continue to do that in the State House.
Great. Ms. Muniz.
Thank you. I am also privileged to have been endorsed by the Planned Parenthood. I have 5 children and 19 grandchildren. I very strongly believe in life, but I also believe in a woman's right to choose, to say what she will do with her own body. I feel it's very intrusive for government or any man or any other woman to try and tell her what she should do with her own body. I believe very strongly in the right to choose, and I will stand very firm in the legislature and fight anything that comes against women. It's intrusive, it's invasive, and it makes me very angry personally. Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Quinones.
Thank you. I'm a Catholic. I go to church every Saturday, 5:30 at St. Catherine's, right there in District 27, and I pray. But I firmly believe in the separation of church and state. I believe that the government should have no business determining what a woman chooses to do with her body. I believe that women are intelligent and capable enough of making those decisions for themselves. And as we've seen over the last couple of weeks with the Hobby Lobby case in the Supreme Court, our country is headed in the wrong direction in terms of what a male or what a boss can dictate on a female employee. Once I join the Arizona legislature, I will fight fervorously to ensure that a woman has her right to choose. But at the same time, I think this is important to note, I think it becomes a matter of educating our culture. District 27 has a large percentage of Latinos living there, which means that they go to the same kind of, they're predominantly Catholic. It's important that we understand from a young age that abortion really comes down to education. And a lot of times we fight or stand against children learning about sex ed. Once I'm on the state legislature, I will make sure that our children get those classes early on so that they understand what they are doing as adults with their bodies. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Ms. Rios.
Thank you. It's a very delicate topic, and it's a difficult issue, but I am proud to say that I have always been very supportive of women's rights. I've always been endorsed by Planned Parenthood and Arizona's list because I believe very strongly that these are very personal and private issues that should be decided between and amongst a woman, her family, and her faith, and that there is no room for government to interject itself in this issue. I've always been quite dismayed at the fact that we had a Republican-controlled legislature that was quick to tell women what they should do with an unborn child, but once that child was born, gave absolutely no services, no concern after the child was born. As I've mentioned, I've worked in behavioral health for many, many years. That also meant working in child protective services. And I guess at the end of the day, I have a real concern with forcing a family that is clearly saying they are not ready for whatever reasons to bring a child into this world, because I'm very concerned about any child coming in and not being wanted. At the end of the day, again, I think this is an issue that should be private and between a woman, her partner, and her faith.
Thank you, Ms. Rios. Our next question is, what role, if any, should state government play in public and private redevelopment of its cities and towns? Mr. Marquez?
Well, I want to thank Representative Miranda for joining us right now. Thanks for coming. Private redevelopment in District 27 is a very critical issue. I work on the South Mountain Village Planning Commission with City Council member Kate Gallego, and we see a lot of need for development in South Phoenix. And I think we got to make sure that the state government does everything it can to make sure we bring quality businesses to the state and quality businesses directly to District 27, and make sure that we're developing our communities in smart ways and bringing the resources that our community wants. Lots of times when I'm knocking on doors, I hear from the voters of District 27 that they want more options. They want more places to go eat and more places to shop, and they want access to a freeway so they can get to work more quickly. On the South Mountain Village Planning Commission, the number one issue we hear about is traffic along Baseline Road, and I think that's a problem with our current development in the district, that we need to work hand in hand with the city government and the county government as state legislators, as state senators, to make sure our community gets the resources that it needs and its fair share of resources. I also want to thank Senator Robert Meza for joining us tonight. Thank you for taking an interest in District 27. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Miranda, would you like to? Do you want me to repeat it? Okay, sorry. What role, if any, should state government play in public and private redevelopment of its cities and towns?
Of its cities and towns. Okay, first of all, I want to apologize for being late. I am your state representative, and there's a lot on my agenda, and I'm just glad to be here to join you in this second half of this debate. And I want to thank Clean Elections for continuing your good service for us candidates. I don't think states should have much responsibility in the decisions of cities' redevelopment. However, our district, District 27, seems to be last on the agenda when development is on the agenda. And that's one of the big priorities that I have, is to advocate for our South Mountain community, Levine, Guadalupe, and our downtown area, to have our hands in the pot first. It's a shame that our state kind of penalizes our cities and towns with funding, because of our negligence of mismanaging our money. We kind of take it out on our cities and take from their funds. Right now, there's a huge development project that I'm involved in, and that's a hospital in District 27. I just met with a group of people from Texas, and I'm advocating for a hospital in District 27. So that's going to be a great day when we cut that ribbon, and that's coming soon.
Great. Mr. Bolding?
So I believe that the state government and city government needs to work in partnership with each other as we're developing private partnerships. Currently, I sit on the Community Development Board for the City of Phoenix. And I can tell you that there are a number of individuals in our community who are looking for opportunities, that are looking for jobs, that are looking for ways to take care of their family. As a state representative, I will do whatever I can to work with our city officials to make sure that we are bringing jobs to our community. And it's important to make sure that we know how our community is working and our officials are out there advocating for us. I'm the only candidate that's been endorsed by the Phoenix Chamber of Commerce. And that endorsement means that what we'll be doing with that endorsement is working hand in hand with development, working hand in hand with our state officials to make sure that we are providing opportunities for individuals to be successful in our communities. At the end of the day, it comes down to making sure that people have the ability to take care of their families, people have the ability to make sure that our economy is thriving. And then like Marquez said, knocking on doors, you hear people who are continuously, upset about the traffic that's up and down Baseline, who are consistently, advocating and they really want to make sure that there's more opportunities in restaurants and businesses. And as a state representative, I'll continue to fight for that.
Ms. Munoz.
I believe that the state does have a role in development in LD27 and other districts in the fact of providing investing in opportunities such as solar energy in our district so that it can provide jobs. Also, like I spoke of the entrepreneurial spirit where people want to have their own businesses. They want to own their own businesses to have a good life and make a good living. And I think that we as state legislators can facilitate the business application process where it can become easier for people to open a business. I personally have an experience of my son who moved from Washington State to open a business here. It took him over 4 months to get his license. That's outrageous. Why does a person have to do without work? Because you have to wait 4 months for red tape and bureaucracy. I would like the state to be part of development and start easing up and start making easier for people to have opportunities. But I also feel that the state should invest in districts so that we could bring jobs. And for instance, hospitals. We should even work with the federal government in cases like that. So absolutely, I think the state government has a responsibility to create jobs, and I think that could help.
Thank you. Mr. Quinones.
Thank you. I completely agree with most of my peers tonight in the sense that the state should play a role in private redevelopment, particularly in District 27. Not only when you walk through the streets canvassing and talking to your neighbors, but also when you drive yourself, you'll notice that there's a lot of vacant lots. And those vacant lots are yearning and they're a call for jobs. Working with our city elected officials, we should be able to navigate that process so that those jobs come in to our town. There's no reason why South Phoenix shouldn't have a movie theater. There's no reason why District 27, all of its residents have to drive out to Tempe or here on the outskirts of District 27. We should think of innovative ways and innovative jobs that we could attract down to District 27. It also gives us an opportunity to work with current developers that live in District 27. People like Victor Vidales, who owns a small business right there on Central and Alta Vista. Folks like Victor have all the skills and all the knowledge to make opportunities like those possible. As a state legislator, I will advocate for other folks to come to the table so that we can navigate a conversation that will attract businesses to District 27.
Great. Ms. Rios.
Thank you. As a legislator, I always believe very much in local control and that those elected officials closest to the people should be the ones making the decisions. So I very much would defer to our city and our county elected officials, but absolutely believe that there is a role for state government to take as well. As a legislator, one of the more important things I think that we do, as opposed to just voting on legislation, is being that resource to bring stakeholders to the table. I think that's a very important role that whoever wins tonight needs to do. As my colleagues have mentioned, there is a lack of resources in our community. There's clearly an opportunity for infill projects. We all go knocking on doors and hear over and over a lack of public transportation, a lack of health care, a hospital. So to the extent that state government can offer assistance, resources, absolutely, I think that government does play a role in that.
Thank you. Our next question from the audience is, what do you believe is the most pressing issue facing young people in your district, and what do you plan to do about it? Mr. Marquez.
Thank you. I want to answer that, but I also want to make sure we give Representative Miranda a chance to answer your first question on choice. I think it's important for the voters of District 27 to know that Representative Miranda is the only Democratic member of the legislature to vote to deny funding to Planned Parenthood.
Normally on the floor, I would say point of order.
And
because I
also-
know Clean Elections has rules. So-
And also to allow for warrantless inspections of reproductive health care centers. So I think it's important that we come back to the point since my colleague was late for this event. But for the pressing issue facing young people, I think the pressing issue in our community is hope. And I think the hope that we need to give young people in Arizona and in District 27 is the opportunity to go to school and to find a job and to take care of themselves and their families. I have a plan to do that. What I'm going to offer to every Arizona high school graduate is that if you do a year of service in Arizona, if you work in our state parks, if you work in our schools, if you work in our hospitals, we'll give you a stipend for that year of service. We will pay for your first year of community college tuition, books, and fees, 100%, so that everybody in Arizona can earn that first year of school. I think it's very important that we send a message to the young people in our state that if you invest in Arizona, Arizona will invest in you. I think this brings K through 12 education, connects it to workforce development, and connects it to the opportunity for everybody to earn their first step towards their higher education goals. And if they don't want to go on to the university, I think they should take advantage of the wonderful community college system we have here in Arizona and make sure they can always go
Ms.
access our
Miranda?
vocational training
Would you like
programs
to-
as well.
Ms. Miranda, would you like to answer the question, and what do you believe is the most pressing issue facing young people in your district, and what do you plan to do about it?
Okay, thank you. First of all, I believe that you first, as a future candidate or a current representative, you must have investment in your community to know what our children need. If you have no investment in our District 27, it's going to be hard to just blurt out rhetoric or talking points. But let me tell you how I've invested in this community. I have been a student in District 27. I have been a teacher in District 27, a school administrator, a school board member, and I've been your state representative for the past 4 years. The most pressing need, through experience, because I've been with these families, is resources. We have close to about 60,000 children in our district, and we need resources. You know, it's just, it's unfortunate that we do get the leftovers when making decisions in the legislature, and that's another thing. When you have to be in the trenches in the legislature to understand what we're going to get and what we're not going to get. And unfortunately, we haven't received the necessary resources for our children. We have a huge population of ELL students. We have a broken education system. And I think if the discussion at the legislature begins to be how do we focus on the poverty in our district first, how do we provide the resources for our ELL students, our Latinos versus non-Latino education gap. Can we just talk about that? And that's been my message at the legislature. But again, if you have no investment in this district, your solution to our children is going to be weak.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Bolden.
For me, when I think about the most pressing issue for our children, the number 53 comes to mind. And currently today, 53% of our Arizona graduates, these are people who took every single class that they needed to. They went to class, they did their homework, they graduated from their high school. 53% of all of our Arizona graduates don't qualify for a public university. So 1 out of every 2 kids. And when we think about education, we know education provides segues to many opportunities, not only jobs. Education ensures that our kids will have, their kids will have jobs. We know when we get education right, We lower poverty chances, we improve economic development, we ensure that individuals aren't going to our prisons. And we've been talking about private prisons since day one of this election cycle in this campaign. And we want to make sure that we have individuals who are educated in our community who don't have to go through those options there. Education not only provides those opportunities for individuals to have careers down the line, it provides a safer neighborhood for our community. The more educated individuals we have, the better chance that we have to bring jobs to our community, the better chance that we have to get that economic development that we so often ask for in District 27. And the only way we can make that happen is if we have individuals in office who had that experience not only at a K-12 level, but at a university level. And I'm sure every single one of us here will say we're for education. Who's not for education? But it's important that we talk about exactly what we need to do. And we need to make sure that we're approving funding for early childhood. We need to make sure that we're providing opportunities for our high school students to receive a STEM education so they can receive those opportunities to qualify for college. And we need to make sure that we're giving parents resources so they can work with their kids day in and day out. And as the next state representative for this district, I'll make sure we do that.
Thank you, Mr. Golding. Ms. Munoz?
What was that? Would you repeat it, please?
Sure. What do you believe is the most pressing issue facing young people in your district, and what do you plan to do about it?
The most pressing issue in District 27 is high school dropout. High school dropouts are the biggest numbers in LD27. 26% of young ladies did not get a high school education because they became pregnant. That is a huge issue. Latinos and black men of color, are shuffled into the prison system under unfair conditions. Our criminal code and sentencing code is unfair. It is unfair that our Latino and black young men get sentenced to harsher and more punitive punishment than anyone else. This is what happens in District 27. It is called the $1 million district because it funds prisons $1 million a year coming from District 27. That is wrong. That's the most pressing issue to me. Yes, it is education, but it's also unfairness. And I will fight to change the criminal system code to make sure that all young men are treated equally and that they have a good re-entry into society. There are no programs for our young men and women who come out of prison today to be rehabilitated, to become productive citizens again. There is none. So this is what I will do. I will make sure that there will be more, that the state of Arizona puts more money in programs such as Hope's Crossing. Hope's Crossing is a program that assists young women. 200 women get released from prison every day. 200 young women come out with nothing. Hope's Crossing provides home and shelter and training, but it needs more, and we need more of Hope's Crossings. That is the most pressing issue in our district, and I will be there to change things.
Thank you. Mr. Quinones?
Thank you. I think the most pressing issue affecting our young folks is, yes, lack of resources, but that's too simple. That's too easy. What's really lacking is a change of culture and also an ability from our legislators to reach out to partners that have different services that they can provide for our young people. As mentioned earlier, when I was a high school English student and teacher right there in District 27, I dealt with students every single day who would come to me and tell me these various problems of not being able to find a job or not having the parent support at home. And so I think if we're going to do anything to really correct that pressing issue, we're going to have a serious conversation where we don't just put the blame or the onus on the government and our elected officials, but we invite all the stakeholders to the table. And all the stakeholders means we sit down with parents, and we sit down with community members, and we sit down with community investors, and we come to solutions that we can provide. Some of you might giggle at that, but I'll tell you what, it's happened before. In the 22 months that I've been on the Roosevelt School District Governing Board, I was able to reach out to Arizona State University and told them our students need help. 2 weeks ago, we had a free basketball camp. I was able to reach out to the Audubon Society and tell them the lack of resources that our students have with science classes. And so they gave them a free science camp last year. I was able to reach out to Act One Foundation and tell them, you know what, our students need access to arts programs. And it's because of that program that our students now get to come to the Herberger Theater, they get to come to the Herd, all for free. So yes, it's lack of resources, but what's the answer? The answer is sitting down, having a conversation about all of our responsibilities, and then inviting different people to the table so that those students get the resources that they need. And once I'm your state representative, I will continue to have those conversations, and I will continue to advocate so that our students, just like I did when I was the teacher.
Thank you. Ms. Rios?
Thank you. Like most of my colleagues, I agree. I think that at the end of the day, education is the foundation, the opportunity that we need to give all children across the state of Arizona. Unfortunately, in Arizona, over the past 2 or 3 decades, we've seen literally a systematic kind of starving of the beast in terms of public education, a governor and legislature that has diverted millions of dollars of public tax dollars to private school vouchers. These continue to wreak havoc on our public school system. It starts with early education. I think we need to reinstitute full-day kindergarten across the state. I've served on a Head Start board for many years, and we know that the most crucial development years for children are those ages from 3 to 5, so I think that we need to focus there. When businesses would come to the legislature and we would ask them, what is the single most issue? What is it that you need to relocate to Arizona? They would say, we need an educated workforce. So again, we need to invest in that so that the students that we have are prepared and the businesses that we can attract to Arizona will come here because we have a workforce to provide. In addition to that, I think that we need to ensure that we continue to make college affordable for all students. Again, it's about opportunities, and I think education has to be a priority in terms of providing that opportunity for all of our children.
Thank you, Ms. Rios. Our fourth question from the audience is, what is your plan to remove barriers to employment for unprotected classes of citizens? Again, what is your plan to remove barriers to employment for unprotected classes of citizens? Mr. Marquez?
I think the number one thing we need to do is make sure Arizona has a strong economy and we bring quality jobs to Arizona. Right now, Arizona is one of 3 states in the whole country that has no preference in state procurement processes. So that means when the state buys office supplies, we buy them from Staples. When the state buys anything, we go out to the lowest bidder. So I think we got to look at state procurement processes to make sure the state is investing in Arizona and keeping dollars here in our state. I think the state should look at investing in solar. I think the state should look at investing in opportunities to make sure that more solar panels on more government buildings means there's more jobs for people that live right here in Arizona. I think creating a strong economy means that everybody in Arizona has an opportunity to work, and making sure that everybody in our state gets that fair shot to be employed.
Thank you. Ms. Miranda?
Well, I think not only statewide, but nationwide, when we're looking at our budget, we need to get away from the top down, the trickling effect. Because what happens is that at the end, who gets the crumbs? And it's the middle class and the lower socioeconomic population that gets the crumbs. Once we finally get at the table and have a discussion that the strength with supply and demand is our middle class and our lower socioeconomic community. So there's just a lot of work to be done. I mean, I'm not going to sit here and say this is what I'm going to do. It's going to take relationships in the legislature. We are the minority there. It starts with relationships and having good discussions with the other side. That is in control. And once you establish those relationships, you'll see progress happening. And then we can truly, both sides, sit down and discuss the budget and discuss our unemployment problems. Until that happens, the reality is it's going to be tough. It's going to be tough. But that doesn't mean that when I become your next state senator that I won't stop fighting. Absolutely, I will. I am in specific positions as a state legislator. I am the vice president of the National Hispanic Caucus for all state legislators nationwide. So I have the opportunity to speak to many representatives across the nation and have those kind of discussions. I'm the co-chair of the Arizona-Mexico Trade Commission, and we've made great progress with that. So, so just stay tuned, because Arizona's on an uprise with our economy, our economic development, and relationships with Mexico and our trade, and that's going to create many jobs. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Bolding?
When we talk about removing barriers, the first thing that comes to mind is creating opportunities. And we want to consistently create opportunities for everyone in all communities. And as the next state representative, the first thing that I will do is consistently ensure that all communities, no matter where you're from, you have an advocate that's standing there and that's fighting for you to make sure that you have opportunities. I'm currently the director of public partnerships with an organization called Teach for America, and we recruit individuals from across the country to teach in our schools. And we recently took a dramatic step, one in which you're seeing more organizations and companies across the country doing. And we accepted DACA core members. And core members are what we call our teachers. And I think we need to make sure that we're having opportunities for not only our DACA recipients, but those individuals who are coming back from incarceration. And as a member of the Public Defender Review Committee for the City of Phoenix, I'm tasked with ensuring that we are providing opportunities for members in all communities. At the end of the day, economic development is what's going to take our community from one place to the next. And as the next state representative for Legislative District 27, I look forward to moving in that period. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bolding. Ms.
Would you
Moon?
repeat the question?
Sure.
Cindy?
What is your plan to remove barriers to employment for unprotected classes of citizens?
Unprotected classes of citizens. Several cities in Arizona have taken bravely to pass laws that protect all people. And I will move quickly in the state of Arizona to continually fight for equality so that everyone is treated equal. And I believe it's been a struggle, but I think we have to remember that we are all people and that we are Americans and that we have to fight for equality. We're a state that's lagging behind, and I will be there to fight for everyone because I believe in total equality. I have been endorsed by Equality Arizona and Stonewall Democrats because I stand for all people, and I'm very proud of that. And I will continue to fight for fairness, equality, benefits, and the same for everyone. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Quinones?
Thank you. In many ways, this question goes back to the previous question, which is how do we eliminate unemployment, or what steps do we take to correct that? Oftentimes, our students from high school are not graduating, and they're either not career or college ready. So in order to really correct unemployment, we need to invest, again, in early childhood education so that our students get the concepts, so that by the time they graduate from high school, they are career or college ready. If our students are career and college ready, this will attract other businesses. We also need to have an honest conversation about what's going on in terms of what happens when our students graduate and they're not prepared. Well, we have an unqualified workload, which means that they'll have smaller incomes and smaller purchasing power, which means we won't be able to reinvest taxes back into our state. I think we need to educate our students, and once we have an educated workforce, that will attract other businesses to come down, particularly to District 27, and as mentioned earlier, all those vacant lots. So we need to prepare our students so that they become prepared young adults, and then they will fill in those jobs because we will attract those businesses to invest in Arizona.
Thank you. Ms. Rios?
Yes, as a legislator, I think it's, incumbent upon us to be out there promoting employment opportunities, working to attract businesses to Arizona. And in those situations where we have unprotected classes of citizens, I think it's incumbent upon the legislature to begin to look at legislation to protect those folks. Are we looking at unprotected classes based on gender, based on sexual orientation, whatever the issue is? Again, I think we need to promote an Arizona that stops discriminating against certain classes. I think part of that equation, and I'm very proud to come from a very strong union family. I'm very supportive of unions because over the years, they have supported the workers that have been the backbone of this country and ensured that workers had safe working conditions and livable wages. So I think that the role of a legislator is to ensure that the unions in Arizona continue to have and provide the protections that they can to citizens, to workers. And I also believe that as a legislator, we need to work to eliminate any discrimination for those unprotected classes of citizens. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next question from the audience is, in what capacity have you served in your community, District 27, and how do you feel it will help you in the state legislature? Mr. Marquez.
Great, thank you. Want to answer that last question one more time. Just want to add that I think it's time we pass the statewide Employment Non-Discrimination Act. And I also want to point out that I'm the only candidate in the race for District 27 endorsed by Equality Arizona. In terms of service, service has been my mission since 9/11 happened. I was down at the University of Arizona when 9/11 happened. All of a sudden, planes were deployed overhead for that entire semester of school. And I tried to join the military then, but instead I got turned on to this program called AmeriCorps. Spent 2 years working in inner city schools, running after school programs, working with kids to give them some hope that they could go to college too. Ended up going to college, found a detour, and eventually found my way into the Army. For the last 5 years, I've been in the Army Reserve. I'm a captain now in the United States Army Reserve. I spent 2012 in Afghanistan working to build community centers for women, working to build schools, and working to build roads and bridges for people. Because in a global community, I think we have to think of everybody as members of our community here in District 27 and across the country and across the globe in places far away like Afghanistan. I've been home for about 1.5 years now. I've been knocking on doors for about 9 months, talking to voters and hearing their concerns and preparing myself to represent District 27 in the state Senate.
Thank you. Ms. Miranda.
Okay, can you repeat the question?
Sure. In what capacity have you served in your community, District 27, and how do you feel it will help you in the state legislature?
Okay, that's what I thought you said, in our District 27. Okay, the capacity that I've played, I've mentioned it before. I was a student in our schools in District 27. I was a teacher and a school administrator and a school board member. So that's the capacity I have served in District 27. I also serve on the advisory council for the South Mountain Community College. I am very involved in the South Mountain Little League, and that's probably my top priority because playing Little League has been my foundation to who I am today. And that's what I have spoken. I have spoken that message to the Little League players of South Mountain because you know, playing sports is the foundation to your leadership, and that's what I told them. You know, it takes teamwork. Playing sports in my community, you know, that might sound like I'm just having fun. No, but it did mold me to who I am today with my leadership skills. Because playing basketball, you need to know how to go right and fake left and go right. You know, pull back, drive when you need to. It's the same thing in the legislature. And I do owe that to my brother. I call him my hero. He's in the audience right now, Robert. And he made me tough. He made me tough, you know. And I thought I was a right-handed pitcher, but he said, no, you're supposed to pitch both hands because there's going to be a left-handed batter. Oh, okay. So I grew up pitching with both hands. I listened to every word he said, and it has molded me to be that strong leader in District 27. And again, I want to mention investment. There's nothing like investing in your community and knowing that you are going to be the next senator to continue that investment. That's important.
Thank you. Mr. Bolding.
So service is what brought me here to where I am today. As I mentioned earlier, I grew up in Ohio, and I'm proud to call Phoenix my home now. And I was on my way to law school, and I learned about an opportunity to come to Arizona to teach. And it was at that point in time where I knew that I wanted to give my heart and my passion to the kids in South Phoenix. And I spent 3 years as a special education teacher. And I can tell you those 3 years were 3 of the best years I've ever had in my life, working with Daquan and Alfredo and Robert and Johnny. seeing the look on their faces and watching Alfredo run into the classroom and say, Mr. Bowden, I want to be a teacher just like you. Those were moments in which that made my heart, melt day in and day out. Sir, and I continued that service as an educator at ASU. And I knew there was an impact that I can do with the 30 kids in my classroom, but I knew that we can have an either further impact. And I wanted to teach teachers who are going to be teaching in communities like me. I didn't stop there because I know that we need courageous individuals in our community day in and day out that's fighting for what we believe in. So I went to the city of Phoenix and I asked, how could I help? I was appointed by the mayor to the Community Development Review Committee, in which we give community block grants to different organizations throughout the city. I asked again, what can I do to help? What else can I do? And then I was appointed to the Public Defender Review Committee to make sure that we had individuals that are advocating for all individuals in our community. From there, I said, what else can I do to help? I know growing up in a low-income community, I didn't see doctors or lawyers or those individuals in my community, but I know that I had an internship opportunity with a guy named James Johnson, who was a lawyer, who showed me what steps I needed to take in order to be successful. So I founded an organization called Future Leaders of Arizona that provides internship opportunities to students in our
We
community.
need to move on. Ms. Muniz?
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. I want to remember.
Sure. In what capacity have you served your community, District 27, and how do you feel it will help you in the state legislature?
Thank you. I've served for over 30 years. I've served my community in all kinds of capacities, volunteer. I was appointed to the City of Phoenix Planning Committee several years. I served there. I sat on the YMCA Board of Directors in the South Mountain area. I've been in there's just a South Mountain Youth Development Association where we raised money for scholarships for young people. But I think my experience working at the Public Defender for over 20 years gives me a personal and unique insight of how I can help my community the most. I have a special perceivement of how the criminal system works. I know that it's not fair. I know that it needs revising, it needs revisiting. We need to go back and see, what are we doing wrong? Why are we incarcerating so many people every year? And why are people coming out of prison and going right back in? We need to visit that. I feel that that's very important and unique for me because I have that personal experience working with attorneys and working in the jails with prisoners who had no hope because they're back in jail again, because they weren't given an opportunity to rehabilitate. They weren't given a chance to go back and say, how can I remove this felony from my record so that someday I'm able to get a decent job to feed my families? Well, that's not possible in Arizona. Unless you have an attorney, unless you have money, it is hard to get a felony charge removed, expunged from your record. So these are the things that I can bring to the legislature because I will fight for the real reasons that LD27 has these numbers. These numbers bother me. These numbers are bad. We cannot continue to exist as a good community with these kinds of numbers hurting our people every day.
We need to move
Thank
on.
you.
Mr. Quinones?
Thank you. I have served District 27 in a variety of ways. As mentioned earlier, I graduated from high school there, and I still recall being the vice president of the National Honor Society, where I set up different community service projects where we went and we read to children. We also went to senior homes and worked with seniors. Shortly after graduating from Arizona State University, I returned home and I became a high school English teacher, where I was able to work with freshmen all the way through seniors, and as mentioned, empower them and encourage them that they could pass that darn test. And they did, because somebody believed in them. I also had the honor and privilege of working with the late Mr. Ben Miranda, and then also attorney Hugo Larios, informing our community about their rights. We used to do a weekly TV program every single day where we would have different individuals come in and talk about different services and projects that our community members could take. As I'm canvassing, I'm either running into former classmates, I'm running into people that remember the TV show, or finally, I'm running into people that I serve now. I am the Director of Programs for the Arizona Latino Arts and Cultural Center, which is right here on 2nd and Adams, and it's also in District 27. I'm in charge of coordinating every first Friday to really celebrate our culture and attract tourism. I'm in charge of hiring local talent, artists, visual or performance. And we set up the events, and you walk into people's homes and they'll tell you, oh, you're that guy with that microphone that was talking about why it's important to celebrate Dia de los Muertos. Yes, I happen to be that person. So I've served District 27 in a variety of ways, but perhaps the most important is those same high school students that I used to teach. They're with me every single Saturday now, canvassing on the street. So yes, they're knocking for Marcelino, but beyond that, they're learning the process of democracy, they're learning self-growth, and they're not afraid of walking up to a complete stranger and talking about why it's important to serve in the community.
Thank you. Ms. Rios.
Thank you. I'm proud to say I've committed my life to service, both professionally in my career as a social worker and politically. I like to tell, I go and speak to classes, that I have always viewed politics as simply social work on a macro level. Over the course of many years, I've devoted a lot of volunteer time. I've served on a Head Start board for 15 years. I've served on a domestic violence board. I served on the Arizona State University School of Social Work Advisory Board here, a rural health board. I think that those types of experiences are vitally important when you're a legislator. At the end of the day, what happens is you have a citizen legislature that is passing legislation based on their life experiences. Our district is very diverse, and as mentioned earlier, we have a large number of children that are going without health care, that are living in poverty. We have a number of grandparents that are raising their grandchildren, folks that are unemployed and want very badly to go to work. And it is the reality and being able to take those issues to the legislature and have that knowledge to say, you know what, this is something that's worth fighting for my constituents. Because, you know, it may be that the legislator from Paradise Valley doesn't have that same empathy because the issues that they're addressing, the people that they're serving are very different. I'm very proud. I was awarded with the Valle del Sol Humanitarian Award a few years back. And again, I think because in my life, professionally and personally, I think that it's about providing for our communities, it's about giving back, and the advocacy that you can provide at the legislative level is very, very important because they're passing laws that affect all of us, day in and day out. And that is the experience and the knowledge that I would take back to that position.
Thank you very much. With our time limitations, we have time for one more question and then closing statements. Our final question will be, how will you ensure that public education is adequately funded? Mr. Marquez?
So, over the last 4 to 6 years, Republicans in the Arizona State Legislature have cut over $1 billion in public schools here in Arizona, led by a Republican legislature and led by a Republican governor. I think we have to restore their funding to pre-recession levels to figure out how we're going to put that $1 billion back in our schools. I think we need to put that money back into our schools to make sure we keep our best teachers. I think we need to put that money back so that we can make sure the money is going to the school districts and the schools that need it most, and making sure that we're rewarding the teachers and the administrators that are making the most difference to make sure students, no matter which zip code they grow up in the entire state of Arizona, they always have an opportunity to succeed. And I think we have to have a very honest conversation as a country and a state here in Arizona about the types of investments we make in our communities. And we have to not be afraid of raising revenue here in Arizona, because investing in schools is investing in a strong community and investing in a strong economy. And over the next 8 years, I think Democrats, this is a Democratic primary for District 27, Democrats will have the opportunity to lead, and it's up to the state senators and state representatives to make sure that we push our state in that direction more quickly.
Ms. Miranda?
Please repeat the question.
Sure. How will you ensure that public education is adequately funded?
Okay. Actually, that was part of why I was late, because I'm working on trying to push for a special session. We just won, actually, the educators of Arizona won at the Ninth Circuit of Congress a decision that Arizona needs to pay back in public education, $300 million. So I know our governor is quick to call a special session for this issue and that issue, but when it comes to education, it's always last. It's not priority. So what I'm doing is I'm trying to talk with key people at the legislature, like our speaker and the governor's staff, that we need to have a special session tomorrow and pay this money back to our teachers and our students, because our teachers and students deserve it. So that's one thing I'm immediately doing. Another thing is that, like I mentioned, I'm a former school board member for Roosevelt, and we have several schools that are in trouble. We have an elementary school, Cesar Chavez Elementary, a D- school. Those kind of things cannot happen. We need to sit with administration, talk with them and see, what is it you need? I mean, is it more resources? Okay, let's get the next senator involved. Let's get your next legislator involved and have these discussions, and let's unite and fight together to give you the resources that you need so that we won't have D- schools. So I'm going to continue to stay close to our board and our Roosevelt School District to make sure that our schools are A+ schools, not B. You don't get a B doctor. You wouldn't want a B doctor to do surgery on you. You shouldn't accept a B school or a D- school to educate our students. So those are my two biggest fights right now.
Thank you. Mr. Bolding.
So regarding funding for education, it's extremely important that we are listening to our community. Time and time again, we are consistently going back to our citizens and asking them to pass overrides, and we need to make sure that first and foremost that we have sound fiscal management, not only at the state capitol but also in our school boards. And I think that once we do that, we have the ability to make sure that we're investing in the right places. I don't want to keep paying extra taxes to make sure that our kids or individuals aren't giving our kids opportunities. What we want to see is we want to see our legislators, our administrators be creative. And when you talk about creativity, let's ask ourselves what other things we can do in order to make sure that we're making our schools stronger. And when you talk about creativity, one of the things that I want to make sure that we're doing is working with Roosevelt School District, working with Levine, working with Kyrene, working with districts throughout the state, is making sure that we are leveraging our nonprofit community. If we don't have music programs out of school, we ask ourselves, how can we best leverage nonprofits that do music better than our current schools? So we go to Rosie's house and we say, what are some of the things that we can do to make sure that we're partnering with our community? Public-private partnerships are what we need to do. If we're looking at opportunities for tutoring programs, we go to the Boys and Girls Club. We go to Big Brothers and Big Sisters. We ask these organizations that are doing great things in our community to help our schools. Because right now, there is only so much funding that we have, and we can't keep going back to taxpayers day after day. We are if the special session doesn't happen, we will all have to face tough decisions. $317 million is being asked to give back to our public schools. And we need to make sure that, first of all, we're thinking about what we can do in order to be very creative in that environment.
We need to move on.
Thank you.
Ms. Muniz?
Yes, education, fair funding, that's got to be prioritized in the state legislature. It is not right now. Right now, $990,000 given to private prisons and education cut. So we are asking for a special session in the state legislature right now to demand that the $317 million that the state owes schools be paid back immediately. Not in January, not in February, not in next May, but now, because our schools need it now. We can't wait. We've had to go out to the public for more funding because our funds were so low. We have to ensure that each child gets the best education possible. And we at Roosevelt have been doing that, and I'm very pleased that our schools are doing a lot better. I'm very proud to say that we've led the fight with less money, but with great people on board, and we're doing a great job. But I really believe that the Arizona State Legislature needs to prioritize education, and I will fight to do that. I will continue to fight against private prisons because that is shameful. That is not even American to be funding prisons instead of children. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Quinones.
I think we have to do what we've been told we have to do, right? The court said there's $317 million in back pay that belong to the schools. And the reason why money has not gone to the schools is because we've not had an honest conversation about demographics. That's what it breaks down to. School funding breaks down to demographics, and demographics break down to private property taxes. And those same taxes then invest in the school districts themselves. We need to have an honest conversation about, are we willing to educate every single student? And if so, then let's do it equally and evenly across the board. It's unfair for certain school districts to not have to rely on state funding because their own property taxes are providing the resources that those students need. Now, we heard earlier about how we need to have creative partnerships. That's what I've been doing the last 22 months on the Roosevelt School Board. If we don't have science classes, then you go to Audubon and you ask them to contribute the resources. Again, it's asking every single member of the community to pitch in. It's asking every single member of the community, what do you want your district to look like? And chances are we'll come to an agreement and a consensus that we want it to thrive, we want it to have jobs, we want people to be educated. Well, what are you doing about it? And so, just to summarize, one, let's follow the law. The judge said you're $317 million in back pay. Let's get that funding back. Let's make sure that our teachers receive it, our administrators receive it, because then that creates a consistency within the schools. And then secondly, let's reach out to those other partnerships and be creative. And let's ask ourselves, do we really want to educate our students? And if the answer is yes, then let's all get active in making sure we do that. And so, as a state legislator, District 27 next year, that's what we're going to do. We're going to have those conversations with every single person to make sure that we all get involved. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Rios.
Thank you. I was in the legislature in 2000, and it was through a very hard fight, but a bipartisan effort that we as the legislature put out to the voters a referendum that was called Proposition 301. Proposition 301 required this inflationary factor that is what we're talking about. The legislature has not paid this inflationary factor for the past 5 years like they should have, so the court has ruled you must pay. Now the state owes $1.6 billion because of that 5-year backlog. I think the point is, had we not done that in 2000, the state wouldn't have paid it, and we'd have no argument. Arizona, when the issue is put to the voters, have voted to tax themselves, have voted for Prop 301. Arizona supports public education. Unfortunately, the legislature and the governor that we've had in control does not. How do we pay for public education? School financing is a very complicated formula. I think now is the time to bring stakeholders back to the table to readdress that formula. As was mentioned here before, we're trying to pass overrides and ask folks that are already taxed to the hilt and unable to pay anything more to yet tax themselves more. I don't think that that is necessarily realistic in some districts. At the end of the day, Arizona is foregoing billions of dollars in lost revenue because of tax exemptions that have been handed out for decades. We need to roll some of those back in. If they're not providing the benefits that they were intended to, you roll it back in. You stop diverting public taxpayer funds to private schools for the benefit of a handful of kids. The $317 million that we owe today, we should go into special session tomorrow, and the Republicans are already saying, oh my goodness, this is a crisis, where are we going to get the money from? Maybe you get it from the rainy day fund. There's $458 million in there, but that's not going to happen. The Republicans are going to pit us against each other, against another issue that's important to Democrats.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We've run out of time for questions, and we'll now move on to the closing statements. As I mentioned earlier, we'll go in reverse order, and closing statements are 3 minutes each. So, Ms. Rios, we'll begin with you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity to talk to you tonight. Just to reiterate, my name is Rebecca Rios. I'm from Arizona. My family's here, parents and grandparents. I've devoted my life to public service, whether it's been working with children and families in behavioral health systems, or serving in the Arizona State Legislature. I was raised in a family that instilled in me that you work hard and you give back to your community, and I hope that I'm passing that on to my children as well. I want to get back to work for District 27 and the state of Arizona at large. I believe that Arizona is an amazing, beautiful place, but unfortunately, we've been under the leadership that has taken us down a path that we don't need to go. I think we can recorrect and be a state that we're very proud when we travel to say we're from, and not be continuous fodder for late-night TV shows. I offer you the choice of being able to kind of hit the ground running. I have the experience in the legislature. I've served in both the House and the Senate. I've served in leadership capacities. It's a steep learning curve, and I think at the end of the day, I can offer you that ability. I offer you a candidacy that's been endorsed by a number of very important constituencies: the Education Association, the UFCW, Equality Arizona, Stonewall Democrats, Planned Parenthood, and the list goes on. And I say that only because you earn those endorsements, and they speak to the work that you have done and you will do. Most importantly, I need your endorsement. And so I come to you tonight basically saying, I'd like to work for you. I will work hard. I believe very deeply in service. And I know that as a legislator, passing laws is only part of the equation. The more important thing we do is being a resource to our constituents and always having an open door policy. And I promise that to you, and I look forward to the opportunity to serving you. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Rios. Mr. Quinones.
Thank you all for being here tonight on a Thursday night and coming and becoming involved in democracy, which is what makes our country the greatest country in the whole wide world. When I was 5 years old, my family and I migrated from Durango, Mexico, and we went up to San Jose, California. And then at 13, we moved to District 27. It's this district that I've called home ever since. So, as mentioned earlier, it's the place that saw me graduate from elementary school. It's the place that sees me go on and become an active student leader at South Mountain High School. It's the place that sees me return as a high school English teacher because I believe in making our community better. I believe in empowering our students as best as we can. I've got that experience. I am a product of District 27, and it's going to take someone who understands the community, que entiende el lenguaje, que entiende la cultura, who understands what that district needs, and can then incorporate his or her knowledge. And I've been blessed that through federal assistance, going on to Arizona State University and earning not only my bachelor's, but then my master's. It's a story that can be told over and over again, but we need someone who's going to go to the legislature and fight. We need someone who's going to go down to our schools and our local business leaders and say, you've got an ally here. And you've got an ally here because this is my home, because this is where I grew up, and this is what I can offer you. Ms. Rios did a wonderful job of saying that. I too am tired of looking at the Colbert Report or Jon Stewart and seeing Arizona this, Arizona that. We are better than that, and we know it. We've seen that change. On April 23rd of 2010, at 1 o'clock, Governor Brewer signed SB 1070. It was a black guy for Arizona. A year later, Senator Russell Pierce tried to do it again. He tried to pass that omnibus bill, where he was going to make it a law where if you went to a school to register, you were going to have to show proof of citizenship. But you know what happened? Arizona has been waking up, and they've been saying that's not the story that we want to tell about our state. And I need you to help me tell that story, ladies and gentlemen. I need you to help me tell the story of Arizona being a progressive state, one that understands history, one that understands what we can do when we work together, rather than alienating a person because of the way they look or because of who he or she loves. Let's tell a story about Arizona together that we can all be proud of. And rather than being on the late show, let's be on the news. Let's be a beacon of hope for our entire country. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Muniz.
Yes, over 30 years of service in LD27 and a lifelong resident in my district that I love very much. I am ready, I am qualified and experienced to go and fight for the people of LD27. 1 out of every 3 children living in poverty, and nearly 2/3 of people working, mothers and fathers, but in poverty and receiving assistance. That cannot continue in our district, LD27. Something is wrong, and I want to go over there and change things. People of color being put in prison for longer sentences than other people cannot continue. People need to have a chance to come back, be productive citizens, and I want to be that hero for you, and I want to work as your state representative, as I have been, and I will continue to fight. I want to fight against these crazy laws, SB 1070, HB 1062, discrimination, making it legal to hate. Those things have got to stop, and I will fight with all my might for the people of LD27. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Bolding.
Thank you. First, again, I want to say thank you to everyone who came out. And for me, this campaign has always been about one particular sentence, and it's not a slogan, but new leadership for a brighter future. If you look at our community right now, and you talk to individuals who live in District 27, a lot of them say that they're not happy with failing schools in our community. They're not happy that we don't have economic development happening in our community now. They're not happy with the way government has been run. They're not happy with the leadership that they've had. Right now, we're in a unique opportunity where we have no incumbents. We have no incumbents in this race. We have an opportunity for a fresh start. And this gives us the opportunity to have individuals who you know will be fighting day in and day out for you. And I'm proud to have been endorsed by a number of organizations, a broad coalition of individuals and supporters who are standing behind our campaign. And again, I don't say it as a means to brag, but as a means to say that we are working collectively with a lot of individuals to make sure things are happening. There's no, I can't say that we don't have a Republican-led legislature, because we do. That's why we need individuals who are not just voting on issues, but that are working for you. And I'm gonna legislate just how I've led this campaign. And that's getting buy-in from a broad coalition of individuals, from the business community, from our endorsement of the Phoenix Greater Chamber of Commerce to UFCW, from Planned Parenthood to social workers, from fire to police, from Maricopa Community Colleges to Education Century. There are a number of organizations that are willing to stand up behind our campaign because they know that this gives a fresh opportunity for individuals in Legislative District 27 to have a voice at the Capitol, to have someone who's going to be fighting day in and day out. And I get passionate every time I talk about what we can do for our community, because there's so much opportunity. And talking with voters at the door, they are excited to see someone that's knocking, that's talking to them, that's giving them their phone number. And I'm going to give that to you tonight, 602-492-5715. Give me a call. I see a few people writing it down. Call me. With that, we need to make, yeah, right. With that, we want to make sure that we have individuals who are working day in and day out. And I can promise you this, as the next state representative from District 27, I'll continue to do that. Please visit our website, www.reginaldbolding.com, and I look forward to working collectively with you to take District 27 to the next level. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bolding. Ms. Miranda.
Okay, first I want to thank Clean Elections again for having this, this forum for us, this opportunity. So thanks a lot. I'm really excited about this election, and especially for the candidates to my left. As I mentioned earlier, investment in the community. That's first and foremost. And every candidate to my left has invested in District 27, and it's going to be exciting to see the results. So any two that win is going to be a good match for our district because of investment in the community. I can't stress it enough. I mentioned earlier too, my investment is a student first, a teacher, a school administrator, a school board member, and now your state representative. And I had that investment as a student, a teacher, and a school administrator before I met my late husband, Ben Miranda. And just to be mentored by him the last 7 years is double investment. I mean, that is the top mentor that I wasn't even interested in politics until I met Ben. But what a true blessing. And you have to go into that legislature really appreciating that it is a true blessing to serve in that legislature if you're there for the right reasons and have true purpose and you love your community, and I do. Thank you for all coming out, and vote for Catherine Miranda, August 26th.
Thank you. Mr. Marquez?
Thank you. When we started tonight, I told you a story about my time in Afghanistan and going to talk to village elders. Today I go talking to voters door to door in District 27. And a lot of people are frustrated. They're frustrated at the state of politics in our country. They're frustrated with the state of politics in Arizona. And my job in Afghanistan was to convince the Afghans to believe in government. But I feel like we have a lot of convincing to do here at home to convince Americans to believe in government in the best country in the world. Part of why people do not believe in government is because politicians in Arizona and across the country have been dishonest. Honesty is what people are looking for in their politicians. 4 years ago, while I was in Afghanistan, my opponent has spent 4 years already in the legislature. 4 years ago, my opponent ran for re-election. 4 years ago, my opponent forged the signatures of voters in District 27. I've knocked on their doors, I've talked to them, and to this day, they are still very frustrated that their signature was forged and nobody was held accountable. So I think it's important for everybody to know that in District 27, you have a new choice, a new opportunity for representation, a new opportunity for a progressive choice in District 27, the most progressive choice in District 27, the only candidate endorsed by Planned Parenthood, the only candidate endorsed by UFCW, the only candidate endorsed by Equality Arizona. Our job as Democrats is to make sure we put the best people forward to represent our party. That's why I'm asking for your vote in the Democratic primary on August 27th. I think we can move Arizona blue within 8 years. What gives me hope that we can move Arizona blue within 8 years is the young people that are not here tonight because they're out knocking on doors, talking to voters in District 27. Alan Lira is my campaign manager. He's a dreamer. Jesus Rivera is my field director. He's a dreamer. Stephanie Aguilar is a dreamer. They're all working on my campaign because they believe in a different vision that we can put forward for the state of Arizona. Alan was a sophomore in high school when SB 1070 was passed, and he believes that Arizona needs to move in a different direction. And so I'm fighting for young people like that every day so that we can bring honesty back to the state Senate and the state Capitol because District 27 deserves leaders they can trust.
Thank
Remember to
you.
vote, Aaron Marquez, aaronmarquez.com. Thank you.
Thank you. Candidates, thank you so much for participating this evening. And to the audience, thank you all for coming out and taking the time to inform yourselves. We encourage you to find out more about clean elections and the candidates running for office by visiting www.azcleanelections.gov. A video of this forum, as well as other clean election forums, will be posted on the site within 72 hours. And we also encourage you to complete the survey you received when you arrived. If you don't have a survey, they're available on the table. Thank you. Good night.